military and the security services, and whether, as you suggest there, they might be generational. That is, the senior officers are still in support of Mnangagwa, but the middle-ranking and junior officers are much more skeptical and haven't benefited from the Mnangagwa government. And also, there is the issue of the intelligence services, which were once Mnangagwa's main base, and there appeared at the time of the 2017 coup to be quite a lot of score settling between the military and the intelligence services. And I'm wondering whether that is another pressure point, or do you think the main divisions at the moment are a kind of generational and a seniority one? That is to say, the top leadership of the military, the service chiefs, the generals, and the top leadership of the intelligence organization, the director of the Central Intelligence Organization, etc., those are pretty much on board with Mnangagwa. And the real pressure on the government is coming from a younger generation of Zimbabweans who are just frustrated both with the kind of the political dysfunction, but increasingly with the economic woes of the country and their own personal circumstances.
Oh yeah, no, I think that you've got that assessment pretty much right. One of the things that happened after the November 2017 coup was that there was a lot of rearrangement and reorganization at the top of the military. Some of the generals who had participated in the coup have been shipped off to diplomatic posts. Some of those who may not have agreed with the coup, they were also shipped off to diplomatic posts. So they are no longer on the scene, so to speak, or they are no longer part of the active command element of the current military. And so Mnangagwa was able to deploy heads of these institutions, including the Air Force, the Army, the Central Intelligence Organization. These are all people who are in some ways connected to or linked to Mnangagwa. You should understand, Patrick, that one of the biggest complaints in Zimbabwe right now, among at least the political elites in ZANU-PF, is that Mnangagwa has taken a very clan, based approach to how he governs. And so a lot of people are people who are connected to him either by family ties or business or through family of others who are already in. So there's this the label that is often used is the Karanka Kabah, which is the ethnic group. Although right. I think that it's an oversimplification of the situation. What it is really is that he's got people who are loyal to him or whom he thinks are loyal to him. And so, yes, he probably has a lot of those on board, on his side. The challenge has to come from the younger generation, the, sort of middle-ranking, the junior, officers, people who do not necessarily have the same liberation war ties with Mnangagwa, the same ideas, the same thoughts, the same philosophy, but also, more importantly, who are not benefiting materially right. from the current situation in which the military has a lot of power. The beneficiaries, I think maybe we will talk about that later. I just think that the biggest problem in Zimbabwe right now is the egregious corruption that is on show. Right. And this corruption has really sucked in a lot of people who are connected and close to Mnangagwa, including his own children, his own sons, especially regarding the procurement of COVID-19 goods. Right. This has been a really big issue. It continues to be a big issue. And I think it has angered a lot of people. It has angered a lot of some of the elites who are not necessarily benefiting from this. Perhaps another qualification to add is that the former commander of the Defense Forces, who is now the Vice President, or rather to be more specific, the man who led the 2017 coup, before handing over the reins to Mnangagwa was General Constantine Chiwenga. He's now the vice president. But one of the conspicuous things in the last few months is that he has been absent. He's not very visible on the political scene. Now, we know that he has been unwell for a long time, and he spent a lot of time in China last year getting treatment. But it's very uncharacteristic to see how he has been quiet and not so much visible on the political scene.
Right. And I've often asked Zimbabwean political activists about that issue, and they say it's true that Chiwenga did the coup in 2017, but also that he and Mnangagwa, despite everything, they have common economic, business, and political interests. But I'm wondering to what extent these fissures within the military, or concerns within the military and the security, are affecting the ruling party. I mean, what is left of the ZANU-PF of old? Because after the 2017 coup, there was this purge of ZANU-PF, and the adherents of the G40 group that backed Grace Mugabe were turfed out, and there was talk of them running separately, forming their own party, and so on. But sure enough, in July, August 2018, there was an election, and ZANU-PF kind of reordered itself and came back and won an election, or at least the National Electoral Authority claimed that it won the election, and that was disputed by the opposition. But it's clearly ZANU-PF remains a going concern. They remain the ruling party. I'm wondering how coherent that organization is at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good question, Patrick. I think that my assessment of ZANU-PF over the last 2 years compared to ZANU-PF under Mugabe is that it's a different party. I think it's a different organization. Mugabe was very visible as the leader of ZANU. Of course, he'd been there for more than 40 years as the leader of the party. And he was very much identifiable. You could identify the party with him and vice versa. Mnangagwa has come in, but the party does not have the same coherence that it had under Mugabe. Yes, I understand and I appreciate that under Mugabe there were factions, but for some reason Mugabe was able to play these factions together, play them against each other for a very long time. And he did that very well, which was one of the reasons why he remained in power for a long time. Mnangagwa's ability to play around with his factions, I think, is very questionable. And like I said, I've already mentioned how he has been accused of favoring people who are close to him or one ethnic group, which has angered a lot of the other parts of the ZANU-PF support base, especially in Mashonaland, where there's a majority, but people feel that their leaders are underrepresented, or rather they, as a region, as a people, are underrepresented within the Mnangagwa government. Now, you can add this to other ethnic groups which have also been unhappy over the years. So I think there's a challenge as far as ZANU-PF's coherence and strength is concerned. But I should also add that one of the reasons why ZANU-PF has been powerful over the years, and perhaps this is the case now, is because of the support of the military. And I think even now the military seems to be running things and being in more control of the ruling party than it was even under Mugabe. I think it's even more visible. So this is why whenever you talk about opposition-ruling party relations, the biggest question is how does the opposition manage to find a way past the military, because, the military is reflected within ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF itself is reflected within the military as well. And trying to find a way to separate that or to dilute that is a challenge. Whenever you challenge ZANU-PF, you are also challenging the military establishment, and the response is often quite vicious. We saw that in 2008 when the military stepped in literally to save Mugabe and ZANU-PF, which had lost to Morgan Tsvangirai and the MDC. And I think from that time onward, the military has been an ever-present reality, ever-present force within ZANU-PF, helping it, propping it up. So I think as a political establishment, ZANU-PF has been there for a long time, more than 50 years, and so you expect it to be more robust than the younger parties. Right. But I don't think that it is the same force that it was 20 years ago.
You mentioned 2008. That level of repression after the first round of the elections in 2008 involved a lot of young recruits, the so-called Green Bombers and all these paramilitary groups and sort of armed youth leaguers and so on. Given the possibility that younger people attached to the security forces in one way or another are less enthused about the government than they were maybe a decade ago, 2 decades ago. What is the possibility of the government really cracking down if there is mass social unrest? Because there does seem to be an increasing climate of violence at all levels, not just political violence, but competition for resources, clashes in various regions and so on, attacks on authority, attacks on the police, and police attacks on individual civic groups and so on. There seems to be a climate of growing unrest. And I'm just wondering, do you think that the security forces are actually capable of containing that? Or one could look at a really violent intervention by the military, which could result in many casualties. I mean, are we heading into that era of sort of mass armed confrontations in the country?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you speak to former service personnel, former soldiers, former police, and even serving soldiers, one of the things they tell you, is that, Alex, we have no choice. We do what we are told to do. And the problem is that the education that people receive within the military as they are trained is very much from the ZANU-PF syllabus. So they defend the nation first, yes, but they are also, taught to understand the ethos of ZANU-PF as a party. And this comes from a very long tradition of the Liberation War, where the two forces, ZIPRA and ZANLA, which prosecuted the liberation struggle, became part of the new National Army in 1980. And so the methods, the political education of the army is very much in line with ZANU-PF and protecting ZANU-PF. So these young people who are recruited, they're called the border girls, the youth, after a politician who was a champion of these sort of youth training programs in the early 2000s, who really were there to justify and repress the opposition in political campaigns. And then they came in, joined the military, and they're part of it. So I think that the issue, if you go theoretical, is that at the moment, a lot of the people within the military establishment, including the young ones, their ideas, their thoughts, their worldview, their interests are aligned to ZANU-PF and the political elites who govern them. The question is, at what point is there going to be a divergence, or is there going to be a realization by them that their interests should be with the poor majority, the oppressed majority whom they are sent to beat up and to repress, than with the political and military elites who are the minority. And I'm sure, Patrick, you have covered a lot of these conflicts around the world, in Africa and elsewhere.